Welcome back to this corner of the internet, as well as this corner of my bedroom that you all are so familiar with, for another round of This Week in Books. In This Week in Books, we talk about what books that I finished reading, what books I'm currently reading, and then what books I'm going to read next. Of course, if you all have some of the same ones or want to answer those questions, feel free to answer them below. But here we go with what I've been reading lately. First book is A Reaper at the Gates by Sabaa Tahir. This is the third book in the Ember in the Ashes series, and I have been putting this off for a little bit. I had this on reserve at the library probably a few months ago, but I had some other ones that I wanted to read first. And of course, when it comes to a series, if you don't remember what happened in the earlier books, or you don't look at recaps or anything, it's pretty hard to get back into the series. So I probably should have done that. Watched some kind of recap video, read some Spark Notes, something, because probably the first few chapters I was really confused and trying to remember each of the characters and what their purpose was as they're moving along through the series. There are 4 books in the series, and this is the third one, like I mentioned. But once I got through and remembered the characters a little bit more, it was an adventure. It was a wild ride for sure. A lot of twists and turns, a lot of reveals of who these characters are, as well as the other sub-characters or supporting characters in the novel. So thought that was great. I don't know when the 4th one comes out. It might be this year, might be the start of next year, but I probably should do either a read through of all these books, but look how chunky. They're pretty much all this size, but I'll either do that or do what I actually should have been doing this first time and do a recap. But gave this one a 4 out of 5 stars. Up next is Red, White, and Royal Blue, and this I finished over the 4th of July holiday here in the US for Independence Day, and very appropriate because of the title, as well as this is around 2 young men who fall in love with each other and end up in a relationship, or a secretive relationship, because one is the son of the President of the United States, who is a female, and then one is a heir to the throne in England, so part of the royal family. So obviously not ideal for either or of the young men, but it definitely pushes boundaries. I loved how it showed the passion of their love story and how it developed and how they were figuring out each other through their own identities and talking through hard issues. But I thought it was very progressive, very forward, and a lot what we're seeing nowadays, where people are being more comfortable around diverse people and LGBTQ issues. So that I thought was very surprising and a very good way to portray that in a novel, and this is a young adult novel. It was also very steamy and romantic than I was anticipating, so pleasantly surprised with that. I gave this a 5 out of 5 stars. And I don't have this book to throw because it was an audiobook, but I also finished The Jane Austen Society by Natalie Jenner, and this follows the lives of 8 different people in England. 1 or 2 of them are Americans, and they are trying to put this society together to honor Jane Austen and build up a kind of a tourism but supportive, positive part of the community and the small village they live in, with a lot of Jane Austen artifacts, a cottage that she wrote a lot in, some of her last books, but it goes much deeper than the fandom and the enthusiasts of Jane Austen, but how her stories have impacted their lives. So I appreciated that authenticity, and it was not just a female perspective. There was a lot of males who were affected positively by her books, and that just shows that her stories can be widely loved and people can enjoy them from all over. So I'm currently reading Fates and Furies by Lauren Groff. You can see my fun little bookmark there. About this much through, so not a lot happening there. And I actually had taken a break. So I'd started this, I think in May, and put it on hold to support more Black authors and diverse authors of color for the month of June, and trying to mix in some different types of books that I hadn't read before. So this one I took a break and put it on hold, but now I am back with this one to try to finish this up. And this is about a couple. They're young at this point. They got married young, and just following them and what their friends' opinions of their relationship is, as they progress through this relationship and what that looks like as they get older, maybe some regrets in there, or things they might have done differently. So intriguing so far. Still a little slow, but I think it's going to pick up since this was one of the books that Barack Obama had on his list as one of his best books of the year a couple years ago when he was in office. I'm also listening to The Flat Share by Beth O'Leary, and this I'm listening to on the Libby app. I'm pretty much 10% into the story right now, so we're learning it's alternating characters between a young woman who needs to find an apartment quickly and a man who has a one-bedroom studio apartment that needs to get more money. So he is subletting or kind of flat sharing his apartment with this woman named Tiff. And of course, there's probably going to be some flirtations, but what makes it interesting is that they aren't in the apartment at the same time or the flat at the same time. He works nights as a nurse and she works during the day. So they have certain hours where they're in the apartment at a time, but pretty much going to assume that those times are going to overlap at some point, and we'll see what happens there. Last but not least, we have what I'll be reading next, which is If Beale Street Could Talk by James Baldwin. And this was part of the Blackout bestseller list and supporting Black authors and Black publishing and Black bookstores a few weeks ago, or in the month of June, and this was one of my selections. So this follows two young lovers who have a child together, and then the male in the relationship is falsely arrested or accused of a crime that he didn't commit. So just reading this, it sounds like it's familiar with An American Marriage. So that I read pretty much a year ago, somewhere around that time frame. But of course, this was written first, and this I think is going to also talk about racial injustice and how that puts a strain on the relationship and a child growing up without a father or a parent due to racial injustice and racial profiling. So intrigued and interested to see more about this. I know it was also made into a film, so adapted, and I'll probably watch that after I'm done reading. So that is my week in books for this week, the first week of July. I'd love to hear more from you all, so if you would like to respond below or make your own video and link to it, I'd love to hear it and see it. And the questions that you would be answering, I'll put those in the description as well, are what did you finish reading, what are you currently reading, and what do you think you'll read next? Of course, this is your thing, so you can put whatever you would like. Of course, I say what I'm going to be reading and what I'm currently reading, but things always change and things pop up, so be sure to be flexible. So if you like this video, please give it a thumbs up or comment below. Feel free to subscribe and share with some of your friends. Of course, this corner will always be here to talk about books and to hear from you all. So have a great rest of your week and happy reading.